Hello and welcome back to the Overdue Sports Show, episode 16 of the Overdue Sports Show. I'm your host, Jake Sawinski, accompanied by more than one person this evening. As always, we've got Will Massa to my left, and below me, our special guest, Kyle Semrad. How we doing, fellas?
Doing well. Excited to talk some ball.
Fantastic. We ran this episode last year. It was the draft episode. Kyle's a freak when it comes to the NFL draft. I got the Jets hat on, obviously. So, and the draft is just 2 hours from us. I mean, we're all in Wisconsin, it's right in our backyard. So, we got to talk NFL draft. We're going to dive through the entire first round, give some best bets if you haven't seen those on Twitter already. But Kyle is the guru. We call him Kyle Kuiper Jr., Mel Semrad Jr., whatever you want to call him. More exact picks than Mel Kiper last year, and I believe the year before too. He's been doing this for years.
I think we owe you a promotion.
I guess so. I'm just bummed. Draft's kind of a once-in-a-lifetime thing. I'm bummed that I can't make it down this week. Been looking around. It seems like they just got the stage set up. I'm thinking it's kind of be like a Wrigley Field vibe, right? Like the historic aspect of being in Lambeau is going to be super cool, but then you pan the camera the wrong way and it looks like a dump. So that's my impression of how things are going to go this weekend, but I'm excited nonetheless.
Well, let's get right into it. We talked a little pre-show, so we're thinking this first one will be really easy. You've got Cam Ward going number 1 QB out of Miami. Is there any world where he is not the first overall pick?
I don't think so. I think the quarterback class this year is pretty shallow, and there's a sizable gap between 1 and the 2-3, and then an even bigger drop off between 3 and the rest of the class this year. When you watch Ward play, it's so nonchalant. I mean, there's times where you'll watch him and it seems like the play stops, his feet stop, his arm stops. But big arm, has the ability to push the ball downfield a little bit more here. I don't think Tennessee has. There's been no secrets about this in the draft process leading up to it. Goodell was all over Ward today in Green Bay at draft events and whatnot. Will Levis just is not it, and I think that there's no way that this one escapes them here.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. That means the Will Levis experiment is over. It's got to be, right? There's no other way around it. We'll jump into pick number 2 here. Cleveland Browns, Heisman Trophy winner, Travis Hunter out of my favorite school, Colorado Buffaloes. He's listed as a corner right now. Do you think there's any way he ends up as a two-way guy, or are we just looking at? I mean, I personally think he's better on the defensive side of the ball, but I think at some point we've talked a lot when we talk about NFL. Like, I think he's going to want wide receiver money, so it's going to be a tough one to kind of balance with them.
I was curious, Will, to see what your thoughts would be on this one. Watching the Buffs probably more than Jake and I combined this year. I'm actually in the minority on this one. I think that he makes the biggest impact in the league as a wide receiver. When I watch him last year, just compared to wide receivers in the past 2 draft classes, like the way that he can contort his body and go up and get the football, it's like prime OBJ-esque. He's got a little bit of Garrett Wilson twitch in there as well. I personally think the way that you make your hay with him is putting him out on the perimeter as a receiver, maybe letting him play some slot corner, or even talking like maybe some safety snaps for him, and then maybe a role on special teams as well. But yeah, I was curious to see what you think on this one, because I think the majority of people think that he's going to be a DB in the league, but I think the difference between what a bona fide star wide receiver can do in the NFL compared to a fringe number 1 cornerback is not even a question. So.
Yeah, that's it's interesting because like I think he is a really good corner. I like him on that side of the ball a lot, but to your point, he was literally a vacuum as a receiver this past year. Like, it seemed like anything thrown in his general vicinity, he was coming down with, and he's not like this, 6'6" wide receiver that's just eating, jump balls. Like, anything in his general vicinity he catches, and it's nuts. Like, some of the grabs he makes are just otherworldly. So I mean, I could see it either way. Like, my logic with this was he gets drafted as a DB and then he gets shifted over to wide receiver, especially because I think the money piece and contract piece is going to play into it at some point, where he's going to want the wide receiver money, and he knows he can definitely play at that level at wide receiver.
I mean, nobody moves like he does. a sizable difference when you turn on the tape. I think if he was being talked more as a wide receiver in this draft cycle, I think the kind of the 1A, 1B is Tet McMillan and Matthew Golden. And I don't think he's even in the same – those two are not even in the same stratosphere as him as a wide receiver. So I would love to see him play wide receiver in the pros. I know the Browns, kind of their front office and their owner, they came out with some statement that kind of alluded to, if they were to make that pick, that they'd be comfortable letting him go both ways. I just don't know how sustainable it is over the course of a 17. Hell, they'll probably be at 20 games in 5 years.
Yeah, no kidding.
I just don't know how sustainable that is. So.
All right, moving on to number 3. You've got Abdul Carter from Penn State, outside of Travis Hunter, probably the best defensive player in the country. Best pure defensive player in the country, going to the Giants.
Yeah, I think maybe only the Saints could take the cake for more of an incompetent front office than the New York Giants have been in these last couple of years. I mean, you let Saquon Barkley walk, which I could be an advocate for. I'm still not in the camp of paying running backs. But then, you let Xavier McKinney walk for free, and then you're signing Brian Burns to a massive contract. It's just they're in flux. The quarterback situation is hell right now too. I just think that this would be a pick that I really do think that they should entertain trading out of if they can get a massive haul for it. And if Carter's still on the board, I think they will have some interest. Because the edge rusher group in New York with Thibodeau and Burns is already
good.
It's pretty solid. Yeah. So I just think in my thing, like I said, they've been trashed. Their GM made a clown of himself on the mid-season Hard Knocks thing. I just think that they've kind of almost are going to be bullied into the best player available mantra. And he certainly is. I think he's the most talented player in this entire draft. I get the Micah Parsons comps 100%. I think he's an impact guy right off the bat. So if they do sit and pick here, I wouldn't expect it to be anyone else other than Carter.
You don't think there's any chance for a Shedeur Sanders reach here? I know there's been some connection with him and Malik Neighbors, and that was the spot early in the season I was kind of thinking, there might be something there when you have such a good receiver that they're going to lock down long term. But to go best available, it makes a ton of sense too. It's you need so much help. Where do you even start?
Yeah, I don't think Shadeur's a Dable guy. I mean, you look at the quarterbacks that he's had, kind of their prototype. He had Josh Allen when he was the OC in Buffalo. Daniel Jones, it's more so the idea of Daniel Jones being a mobile guy.
Yeah, exactly.
Ball over the middle of the field. I just don't see him being a Shedeur guy. I do think they're major players to kind of sneak back into the back end of the first round, early second round, and take a quarterback here. But with Russell Wilson and Jameis, I think that kind of signals that they're you're not going to win games with those guys, but you're going to be comfortable with kind of, taking your pick of those guys and rotating on and off throughout the year. It's going to be an interesting quarterback room for sure this year there. But I think that they're kind of looking towards next year with that class of Drew Allard and Nussmeier and Arch Manning. And I think that's probably the wise thing to do here.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely with you. Pushing on, pick number 4, we've got the New England Patriots, and you've got them taking Will Campbell, offensive tackle from LSU.
Yeah, I'm a huge Drake May believer. I think just he was a product of his environment last year. I think that it was a disaster around him. He had no time to throw the football, no real offensive weapons. It was almost impressive how dysfunctional they were at times. For an organization, you wouldn't expect to be like that. Campbell's a guy that in this draft cycle, there's a lot of concerns that have dinged up. There's some people who think that he's going to slide just because the measurements don't check out. He's got really short arms, small hands, but you turn on the tape, and he stymies guys. He played obviously big time football in the SEC. I think this is kind of just a sit and pick spot here where they sure up the blind side for May. I mean, they got to protect the guy. I mean, I think he showed flashes of Justin Herbert kind of football, little Josh Allen, little shades of Jordan Love in there. I'm super high on him, and they got to do what they can to protect him at this point.
All right, number 5, you've got Mason Graham going to the Jaguars, Jacksonville.
Yeah, definitely a culture guy here. Kind of a bulldozer on the interior defensive line here. There's a lot of Ashton Genty smoke right here. That Liam Cohen might be going for more of a Ferrari, definitely an offensive-minded guy here. But I think Graham is truly the best player available here. A defense that could use some help on the interior here. So Graham is kind of just my sit and pick here. There seems to be a very clear top 5 in this draft. After this, I think what you're going to see is you're going to see a lot of teams looking to trade back. There's not as many bona fide stars at the top of their position as there has been in future years. It's going to be a very interesting first round because I think there's going to be so many teams trying to call the move back, regardless of moving up. And it's just going to create for a really interesting dynamic in this first round. So I think after this is maybe we're going to see a little shakeup start to happen.
That's interesting with a lot of the Genty smoke there because ETN is obviously extremely talented, and Tank Bigsby, I mean, I know he is what he is, but he still put together a pretty good year there as the 2-back. So I'd be shocked to see them move out of that running back room into a rookie. And yeah, like we are in the day and age where you don't really pay running backs anymore. So getting a third good back still makes some sense, but I don't really see that fit. And for what it's worth, the odds out there, Ashton Genty's draft spot right now is 6.5, and it's pretty big plus money to go over that. So if the Jags do end up sit and pick and go D-line here, like that's probably a slam dunk.
Yeah, I would agree. I agree with what you said there. I think the running back room, they stay there. This is also a spot where like maybe a wide receiver is in play with, I know they love Brian Thomas a lot there. I think they're fine. They're comfortable with the weapons that they have. So I think you just lean defense here.
Yeah, with you. Pick number 6, we've got our first trade of the draft. Speaking of trade ups, trade downs, we've got Indianapolis moving up to take the Raiders spot at 6, and we've got the Colts taking Tyler Warren here out of Penn State U, aka Penn State University.
Yeah, I think this is the spot that they have to get to because of your New York Jets, Will. There's the word out of New York is that the Jets are kind of enamored with Warren. Just the player he is, the person he is, the culture builder they is, with Aaron Glenn and co in there now, I think they're definitely trying to change the culture in New York. And this is kind of like that blue collar, blue chip type prospect that you could add to your offense and really make things go. So, Indy has done a ton of work on tight ends. If you think about Indy in the past couple of years, like from a fantasy standpoint, you're like figuring out whether you want to stream Mo Ali Cox or whoever the other Jack Doyle, like all those guys.
Yeah.
I think a guy, if Richardson's going to be the guy in Indy, I think they need to start making things simpler for him. Some layup throws over the middle of the field. Warren can block his ass off. He's a field stretcher. And I just don't see the Raiders being comfortable with really anyone left on the board here. That's what I mean about the kind of the drop off after 5 here. So I think that's a prime kind of trade out spot, unless the Raiders want to maybe think about going quarterback there. But I think pick 6 is really where you're going to start talking about tight ends, and they're going to start fielding a lot of calls because there is a lot of smoke around the Jets, maybe looking at Warren here.
All right, number 7, Will's Jets. You've got them picking. Is it Shamar Stewart? Is that how you say his name? I'm kind of dumb sometimes. So
Shamar Stewart, yes. When you watch him, I mean, there's a lot of debate. You look at all the experts mock drafts right now, the edge rushers, and it's drunk. It's all over the place. They're top 5. They're in the 30s. They're low 20s. I've seen like Stewart and Michael all the way down to like 23, where my Packers are. Anyways, this just seems like a Jets pick to me. When you watch Stewart, he is just flat out more athletic than everyone on the field. He went and maybe had an all-time combine performance. Like, this guy is uber athletic. He is a specimen. Like, the body screams Myles Garrett. The production is just not there. Like, you watch him on tape, and there's so many plays that he just didn't finish. Like, he's bulldozing. He's backing a left tackle into the quarterback and then just whiffs. So, like, they're betting on the upside here. Will, you can correct me here. Jalen, what's the edges? Johnson in New York.
Oh, Quentin Johnson.
Yeah. So yeah, the edge rusher. They've been okay with taking a shot on some of these uber athletic edge rushers, and I think Stewart here is the guy that just has the biggest up arrow here. So that's where I would go if I was the Jets.
I'd be devastated if we didn't get Warren, because last year we were in a very similar spot, and I wanted Bowers in that spot for the exact same reason. Like, just makes so much sense. Make it easier on the offense. You already have a great running back room. You've got Garrett Wilson. Like, just add somebody that can stretch the field a little bit as a tight end. And I know Bowers kind of falls into that wide receiver range, but I would love if Tyler Warren got there. That would make my draft day. They never do the right thing on draft day, though, so I don't have my hopes up.
New regime, though, I would caution there's levels to this shit. I don't think we're talking about a Brock Bowers this year.
Oh no.
Tyler Warren's very different.
Yes, very different player. I think the way Warren affects the game is more George Kittle-esque.
Yeah.
Where, he's doing the dirty work. They're going to scheme him open. He'll be a nightmare to get your hands on. Whereas Bowers he's going for 10 and 180 in a game.
Yeah. We'll push on here and let me stew in my sadness as a Jets fan. With the 8th pick, we've got Carolina going with Jalen Walker, edge rusher, linebacker out of the University of Georgia.
Yeah, I think you did. You did him well there, announcing him as an edge and linebacker there. He's a guy that is more so listed as a linebacker, but it's really deceiving. He's not the traditional off-ball linebacker that the current state of the NFL is kind of just punted to the curb and, just kind of dismiss those guys. Jalen Walker, he kind of plays like the Micah Parsons rover role. When you watch him, he's blitzing from the top of the center all the time. They'll put him on the edge. He's a chess piece for a defense here. Carolina is desperately kind of lacking that defensive superstar. They just locked in J.C. Horn in a big contract extension on the outside. Brian Burns is gone. They're really kind of just craving, they're longing for that piece that they can move around, that can be a stud, especially after Kuechly, kind of called it quits a couple of years ago. Walker is a guy that I think if he goes to the right system, he could end up having maybe one of the more impactful careers of anyone in this draft. I'm really high on the ability if they use him the right way.
All right, number 9. I think you said this was a trade pick as well. Pittsburgh. You've got Shadur Sanders going to Pittsburgh.
Yeah, we'll see how Will feels about this one. The one thing that I do think New Orleans has done well is stayed pretty tight-lipped about what they plan to do in this draft. Obviously, they need a quarterback, especially with the news coming out that Derek Carr is having significant arm problems again and is in jeopardy to miss a good chunk of the season. This is more of a Kellen Moore thing. Kellen Moore being the new coach out in New Orleans here. I think he's going to want his pick at quarterback. I just don't see that being Shadur. And I think the Steelers are really enamored with Shadur. And I think that they are going to have to get to this spot to feel comfortable about landing their guy. So it's going to take a big swing, probably this year's first and maybe a first next year for Pittsburgh to do it. But the word with Shadur is that he interviewed super well in Pittsburgh. That's where he has his sights on. Pittsburgh's GM was in the media the other day talking about, hey, we're going into camp with 4 quarterbacks. We only have 2 right now, and we're going to explore all the channels to get there this weekend. So I think all arrows point to him going to Pittsburgh. It's just a matter of how early they have to move up to do it, because I don't think they're going to be able to be comfortable sitting there at 21 and taking them, even if I do think that he might slide all the way there.
Yeah, I would be with you. Like, I wouldn't be surprised at all if he fell that far. To me, and you probably watch more tape on it than I do, but just watching him at CU, and like, yes, that offensive line was atrocious. Half the time he's running for his life, but I feel like just the way he sees plays develop is slower, and it almost affects the way that he is getting the ball out. It's like, yeah, he didn't have much time after the snap, but he wasn't even on plays where he had time. Like, I feel like he just didn't see enough develop, and luckily he had insanely good wide receivers there, so he's able to get the ball into playmakers' hands and make some things happen. But to me, there's still a lot of gaps in the game. Very, very accurate. Like, when he could sit in the pocket, he's fine. Like, really good passer, not amazing arm strength, but I don't think it's bad. It kind of just falls into that mid tier, but in a year where there isn't a very deep quarterback class. And Pittsburgh desperately needs a quarterback. I mean, you just let Justin Fields walk. You just let Russ walk. Like, you got to do something. And if you got to trade up, I think this is probably the spot to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, you hit it right on the head. That's the number one thing that I see with him is, like, he just doesn't play on time. And I think, like, this is more of a Kellen Moore thing. I think Dart's going to be his guy. Jackson Dart reminds me a ton of Bo Nix. And the thing with Bo Nix last year, like you saw, like, he, like, the talent downfield wasn't immaculate. He was a mobile guy. He can move a little bit, scramble for first downs. But the biggest thing with him is that he could play on time, and he made a match made in heaven with Sean Payton, who could just kind of pull all the strings for him. And I think that's why Dart's going to probably be the guy that New Orleans covets. Pittsburgh just likes Sanders. I think you're right. A lot of check downs. The tape kind of reminds you of Caleb Williams from last year, where it's just like you can't even truthfully evaluate him because the offensive line play was so bad. So I have a hard time being as critical on Shedeur as others do. It's just going to kind of be a wait and see thing. But this is just football aside, I think probably the best fit for him.
Yeah, definitely. Let's move to pick 10. We got the Chicago Bears, who, we thought were going to be really, really good last year and didn't quite come to fruition. We've got them taking Ashton Genty, a Heisman runner-up winner, running back out of Boise State, first RB off the board, and a couple slots down from where the Lions have him.
Yeah, the Bears are perennially the self-proclaimed champions of the offseason every year, it seems.
Can confirm.
I got to get my jab in there. But I am as big of a DeAndre Swift hater as you'll find, and that has nothing to do with my disdain for the Bears. I remember when he hit the market out of Philly, the year where he went crazy in Philly. And I was just like, this is not sustainable. Like, he's running through crater-sized holes. He's benefiting from the zone read option scheme with Jalen Hurts. And then I guess I got to say some nice things about the Bears. I like what they did in free agency this year. Like, there's not too many holes up and down the roster. So, like, it frees up this ability to kind of make this luxury pick. And, like, why not? Like, this is probably the best running prospect that we've seen since Bijan Robinson. Take some pressure off Caleb Williams. They did a lot of work revamping the offensive line. I think they can really kind of hone in that scheme. We can't forget about the fact that Ben Johnson's calling the shots there. And if you look at the way that Detroit's ran their offense, it's all predicated on the run. And they're going to need a guy who can take the rock 20 times a game. I don't think that's DeAndre Swift, and I don't think he really fits the scheme that Ben Johnson really wants to implement there as well.
All right, number 11. Armand Membo I think I said that right. I'm like going through the list now. I'm getting all the weird pronunciation names.
There's a bunch of those.
Yeah, to San Francisco at the 11th pick.
Yeah, this is also one that I could see a trade out spot or them going on the interior or at the edge on the defensive line here. This is my only thinking here is the Niners roster is getting awfully expensive. They're going to have to make a big decision on Purdy. A lot of money to Ayuk. They're kind of in a really odd position right now. Trent Williams is getting really old. You can't really bank on him protecting the blind side for that much longer. Membu played a lot of his snaps at right tackle at Missouri. He's a guy who tested super well at the combine, and I think just his athletic traits alone and that up arrow is enough to make him the OT2 in this class, just on those traits alone. So I think they bet on that there. Niners have always been known to like mobile offensive linemen, and I think that's a pick here.
All right, moving on. We've got our first receiver off the board at pick 12 to Dallas. We got Matthew Golden out of Texas, looking to bolster up the offense a little bit here.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of offensive line smoke here. I can't see Jerry Jones swallowing his pride enough and taking a big guy with a pick that's early in the first round here. But I mean, truthfully, CD does need a running mate. You can't bank on Brandon Cooks or whatever they've ran with the last
Tolbert and like wide receiver 4s on most teams. Yeah,
exactly. Golden's a guy that I've heard like roughly 2/3 of the league has as their top receiver on their boards. I know Tet is like kind of an acquired taste. There's guys that have him as high as like 6 in this draft, and then there's guys that have him in the 50s. Golden's another guy, when you turn on the tape, he's got that like Garrett Wilson twitch to him. He's a field stretcher. The way that they've used CeeDee Lamb is kind of like a move piece, use him in the slot, move him around, all that stuff. I think having a nice field stretcher in Golden really kind of helps that offense go. They're kind of also reaching make or break time where they might have to make a decision on moving Dak if things don't start pointing upwards here.
At 13, we've got Calvin Banks going to Miami, wide receiver out of Texas.
Yeah, as a Tua dynasty owner, it's almost scary watching their games at this point now. Like it's to a point where, you know, he's having a tough time protecting himself. Nonetheless, the offensive line is having a tough time protecting him. Banks here, I think, has a chance to be the best offensive lineman in this draft. He's definitely more polished than Membu right now. So I think they sit here and try to protect Tua. I could also see Will Johnson being in play here at corner, especially with all the smoke about trading Jalen Ramsey right now. This team has a lot of needs for as much as they've treaded water in the last couple of years. So I could see this one being kind of anywhere.
Yeah, I like that move. I mean, they've got all the skill players in the world. It's just,
keep the quarterback no shortage healthy. Of that.
Yeah. Pushing on to pick 14. This is the pick swap between Las Vegas and Indy. So we've got the Raiders here at 14, going with Will Johnson, cornerback out of Michigan.
Yeah, Will Johnson's another one that, early on in this draft process was a unanimous top 5 prospect. They've dinged him recently for some knee concerns. I know that a lot of the medical reports didn't love him. Nothing short term, but they have some issues about him long term. And he didn't test at all, which is really puzzling for a lot of teams who predicate a lot of their draft board on just athletic testing and how guys perform at the combine. So he's kind of a mystery where he's going to land in this draft. He's undoubtedly the most talented corner, most polished corner in this draft for me. He's going to be a really good player. He's my pants off pick for the Packers if he somehow gets to 23. But I think Johnson would be a good fit in Las Vegas. Hobbs is gone in that secondary. Jack's gone in that secondary. So it's just kind of, a player that I think that if they're comfortable with the medical here, he's probably the most talented player left on the board and a position of need for them as well.
Next up, we've got Michael Williams from Georgia. You've got them going to the Falcons, something they need some help with on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, another one here who just kind of blends into the mirage on the edge, Michael Williams. Played a lot of big-time football, obviously, in the SEC, a lot of big games. Him and Jalen Walker were kind of used interchangeably. He can rush from multiple spots, and I think it's just a massive position of need here. This is one of the ones where, the odds in Vegas right now are all kind of pointing towards them going edge, them going defense. They need a lot of work on that side. I think they're comfortable with Michael Penix and the weapons that they have skill-wise on the offensive side. So I think they're just going to look to bolster. Raheem Morris being a defensive guy is going to go into this pick here. So
moving to pick 16, I believe this is not a trade spot. We've got the Cardinals here taking Jahdae Barron, a cornerback out of Texas.
Yeah, another really good player here that I think I could see going a lot higher than this as well. Cardinals are kind of trending upwards in the right direction. I think Trey McBride emerging better than people thought. Another kind of sneaky offense last year. This is kind of another best player available pick for me here. They've got a lot of really intriguing pieces in that secondary, Budda Baker, guys like that. So I think Barron's a guy that can play corner, he can play inside, he can even play deep safety if you need him to. And Jonathan Gannon being a defensive-minded guy here, I like him to sit here and pick a really talented corner at 16.
All right, another defensive guy, Walter Nolan out of Ole Miss. You've got them going to the Bengals. Another team needs some help there.
Yeah, Bengals, they've kind of gone with the sexy offensive-minded approach in the first round. These, multiple times, lot of money invested into 2 receivers now. So they're really gonna. This is a spot where I could see them maybe trading back and trying to gather more picks for later rounds in this draft. But Walter Nolan, I think, is just kind of too good to pass up here. A lot of smoke on him. A lot of guys saying that there's no way he gets out of the top 15 in this last week or so. He is massive and he is impressively athletic for as big as he is. He is a people mover. So it's one of those ones that I think is very Jalen Carter-esque in Philly. Not that type of impact, but a guy that you can plug in the middle on day one, and he's going to stop the run, and he's going to get pressures from the interior. So really good player here. A couple of character concerns, but I think they'd be comfortable enough if he gets to 17.
Next up at pick 18, we've got the Seattle Seahawks going with Gray Zabel, offensive tackle out of North Dakota State.
Another really polarizing guy here, and another spot where I think Seattle could really go in any way. You got to kind of question what they're going to do after moving off of DK Metcalf, and then they bring in Cooper Kupp. It's kind of puzzling to figure out what their identity is going to be. I don't think the Sam Darnold thing is going to work out the way that they think it is there. I think that was kind of just a product of him being in a beautiful system last year, like Kevin O'Connell and all those weapons in Minnesota. Like, I think they have a chance to be really bad next year, in my opinion. Like, I am hammering Seattle unders this year. Anyways, that aside, Zabel's a guy that he could literally play all 5 offensive line spots. He could play tackle, he could move inside, and I think he could play center. So this is a position where I could see them going receiver. I think this is Tet territory right here, where they could be the pick here. But Zabel's a guy I think they like the versatility to sure up multiple positions of the offensive line. Just kind of see where he fits in camp.
At 19, you've got Mike Green out of Marshall going to Tampa Bay.
Yeah, another low major defensive prospect here, but he led this edge rusher class in sacks this year. I believe he had 17. He went down to the Senior Bowl in Mobile and really impressed well. He tested well. Tampa has gotten older on the defensive side of the football. They let Tryon Shoyinka walk. Some of the linebackers are starting to get really banged up and old and out of there. So I think this is just kind of position where Todd Bowles shores up the defense. He's another defensive-minded guy. And I think they take a chance on a high upside edge here. There could be a lot of defensive guys in play here, but Green, I think, is the guy that has the highest upside at this point, and I think they'd be willing to take a shot on him.
Next up, we got Mile High. The Denver Broncos looking to add to Bo Nix's weapons with Luther Burden, wide receiver out of Missouri, trying to bolster up a little bit more opportunities for Nix to sling the ball around.
Yeah, I would love this pick. I'm questionable. I'm doubting myself on this one, but I just love the fit and the opportunities it could present to that offense. Like, you think about their skill position players last year. It's Cortland Sutton. It's Javonte Williams. It's Dulich. It's like there's so much. The offense is so stagnant, and yet it still performed really well. There's no shake. There's no twitch to the offense. And like when you think back to Sean Payton's best offenses back in the day in New Orleans, you had the Darren Sproles, the Michael Colstons, like stuff like that. I think it would be badass for Denver to just sit here. I love the comp of Deebo Samuel with Burden, but with like a jetpack on his back. He's so much faster, so much more athletic, but can do a lot of those same things. He's a guy that I think you could line up out of the backfield for some nightmare matchup problems. This would be a really cool pick for me if they go here, and I'm hoping that they take the chance to do so.
Next up at 21, I think you said this was a trade spot as well, if I wrote down the right number. Colston Loveland out of Michigan going to the Chargers.
Yeah, correct here. I think New Orleans, originally trading back with Pittsburgh in the mock. I think they just see an opportunity here with 2 teams behind them in Green Bay and the Chargers, who are obviously very comfortable with their quarterback positions. What's it mean to them to trade back another spot, gather another day 3 pick here? The Chargers just don't want to wait around any longer for their guy here. Colston Loveland, obviously the Michigan connection is massive here with Jesse Minter. Yeah, Harbaugh and Jesse Minter. And Loveland, he's really polarizing. I could see him going this far or a little further, or I could see him going really high. I think he's a really good player. He's a faster Sam Laporta, in my opinion. But I think the Michigan connection, the cultural connection there, and just the need to kind of keep giving Justin Herbert more weapons is really evident here. So I would like this pick in this spot as well.
Next up, we finally got the Saints here at pick 22, going for their gunslinger, Jackson Dart, quarterback out of Ole Miss. I like this one a lot. I'm into this.
Yeah, I think talent-wise, it's maybe still a little bit high for Dart, but it's kind of like getting towards the back of the first round where I think the Sharks start swirling around here, where the New Yorks and the Clevelands start coming into play. And I think that they've traded back, they've accrued some picks here. And like I said, I think Dart is just kind of fits the mold of what they want to do in New Orleans now. He said in an interview that he models his game after Jalen Hurts. Well, who was the quarterback last year? in Philly for their new head coach, Jalen Hurts, right? So he's got the ability to move, got the ability to kind of play on time. I think this is the better fit here than Shedeur. So I like this pick at 22 before some of those other teams have trade-up opportunities to maybe target their quarterback.
Now, I got to be honest. I did a double take here. You've got Tet McMillan going to Green Bay. And were you alive when they took a wide receiver in the first round? It would really twist the knife in Aaron Rodgers. That's for sure.
Oh, yeah. I'm with you here. This is definitely wishful thinking. I've accepted that I'm going to be wrong on this one. However, I think that this is the type of wide receiver that Green Bay covets. Like, they are so into the analytical mold of big-bodied guys who test really well, the athletic traits over production in college. Like, they want the upside. I think if he's here and they're comfortable with some of the character concerns that have come out about his work ethic, I think they kind of have to. I think the offense really struggles without Christian Watson. Whatever you think about him, just the guy that has the ability to stretch
He opens the field. Yeah.
Absolutely. Go up and get a jump ball. I think this could be the year, and there's a ton of smoke around it, more so than usual, about this possibly being the year. They kind of add that like power forward body into the wide receiver room. You know, you think about what the bodies they have in there right now. It's the Jaden Reeds, it's the Romeo Dub. It's kind of diversified. It's kind of like the Broncos, something that they don't already have. So I would love this pick here, if they're okay with the character concerns.
I would be too. Like, any effort to, try to get that wide receiver on the offensive end is a step in the right direction for me.
Next up, we got pick 24. The Minnesota Vikings going with Derek Harmon, D lineman out of Oregon.
Yeah, this is another spot where Minnesota has prioritized weapons a lot in the past. This is a sneaky like running back player spot for me. I've seen a lot of Hampton from North Carolina mocked here. This kind of depends on what they want to do. I think Harmon's a really big talent. Transfer from Michigan State, went out to Oregon, still in the Big Ten. But really big time disruptor at a young age on the interior. Definitely something that Minnesota could need in a division where the offensive lines are pretty darn good across the board here. So I think Harmon, kind of a best talent available for a position of need here, just makes a lot of sense for Minnesota, but wouldn't be surprised if Ibuka or Hampton is in play here as well.
Speaking of Ibuka, you've got him next out of Ohio State, going to Houston, Emeka Ibuka.
Yeah, I'd be shocked if Houston didn't go wide receiver in the first round. It's just kind of been the word on the street here. He's a guy that's unanimously liked across the board, but like no one loves him enough. I think he's just going to be a really steady, really darn good player in the league. He does dirty work. He blocks his ass off. I think he'd fit wherever a team drafts him. But I think a team that operates the right way, a good team that has historically been good at evaluating wide receivers, is going to land with him. I could definitely see Houston being a trade-up candidate to try to go get more of a preferred wide receiver with the health concerns of Tank Dell and Nico Collins the last couple of years. But if he does get to this spot, I'd be jumping for joy if I was Houston.
Next up, we got pick 26 with the Rams going with Josh Simmons, tackle out of Ohio State.
Yeah, a lot of people believe that Simmons is the most talented offensive lineman in this entire draft. He just missed a large portion of last year with a non-contact knee injury. So obviously, anytime that creeps up, you're really relying on your medical team to feel good about making a pick like this. But he's a guy who has a lot of positional versatility. I think you could kick inside or be a really good offensive tackle here. The Rams are getting older. Their tackle just retired. So I think Simmons could be a really good pick here. This is another team to keep out with to be a trade-up candidate if Loveland starts to fall or if Warren, for whatever reason, starts to fall. I think they could be big players in the tight end market as well.
At 27, you've got, is it James Pierce Jr.? Did I say that right? I think that's his first name. Going to Baltimore.
Yeah, this is another guy. I think the character concerns are a big, big ding on him because he is in a lot of people's book, undoubtedly the most talented and had the biggest college production to match the talent level at Tennessee this last year. A little bit smaller on the edge, but I am pretty confident in saying that he's going to be a really good pro to diversify someone's pass rush. I think Baltimore has the culture where they can kind of absorb maybe any character concerns that they might have there, but Pierce is going to be a wrecking ball. Definitely a true speed rusher, bend the corner type of guy, but the Ravens are in desperate need of getting back to their old ways of affecting the quarterback. They look really solid with what they can do at the back end, but they need to get after the pass rusher, and I think Pierce helps them do that here.
Next up, we got the Lions going with Tyler Booker, an offensive lineman out of Alabama.
Yeah, Booker's a really good player. It's just a matter of how people value a guy that really probably can only play guard in the pros outside of tackle. The Lions are another sneaky regression candidate for me this year. I think their coordinators that they had last year did a heck of a job. I mean, losing Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn is not an easy task, in my opinion. I think they could go definitely pass rusher is probably the biggest need for them on this roster. But I think Dan Campbell is like mortified of taking a step back in terms of that smash mouth style of football, being able to pound the ball here. So I would bet after losing their guard in free agency this year that he takes the best player available to kind of keep that smash mouth identity. But they're an interesting case for me this year because I don't know if Dan Campbell is a good football coach. It's just a matter of.
No, that's a really good point. It almost seems like he's a Sirianni type, right? Like a coordinator merchant. And that's a really good point because, I mean, you looking at the last few years, like the balls on that guy, and most of the time they're not intelligent decisions. They're just, gut feelings, and they seem to work out. So that's a really good, that's a legitimate concern. All right. Number 29, you've got Kenneth Grant going to the Bears.
Yeah, I like the Bears. They have 2 second-round picks this year. So I like them kind of being able to make this end of the first round their playground if they want to do it. This would be a trade with the Commanders. The Commanders are towards the bottom. I think they only have 4 or 5 picks in this entire draft. So adding some draft capital on day 2 would probably be enticing to them. Kenneth Grant is a guy that I think fits the cultural mold that Chicago wants to go with. I think this would be a home run if they can come out with Grant and Genty in this draft, 2 positions of need. They addressed edge rusher. They still got Sweat on the edge in Chicago. So adding a guy that can kind of get after it on the interior, help the pass rush out there. Like I said, fit the cultural mode. I think this would be kind of a home run pick. And they're a sneaky player, I think, to get back into the first round and pick twice. Not to mention, we haven't mentioned so far, this is one of the only drafts that I can remember in my lifetime where there's not a single team that owns more than 1 first-round pick this year. So it kind of makes it interesting to see who wants to, fork up enough to get back into the first round if they choose to do so.
Mm-hmm.
With pick 30, we've got the Buffalo Bills going with Maxwell Hairston, a cornerback out of Kentucky.
Yeah, freak athlete here. In my opinion, maybe the best athlete in this entire draft. Ran a sub 4.3 40 at the combine. Elite ball skills, right? Like he's going to get the ball and go the other way. I believe he led all high majors and pick sixes last year. A really unanimously loved prospect in the draft community. A lot of rise, a lot of smoke these last couple of weeks. His biggest concern is his playing weight. Like there's some rumors that he played at like 165 last year on the edge. And a lot of the guys,
small.
He's small. It's always funny seeing what colleges list these guys at, and then they show up as if there's not going to be a scale at the combine. So,
true.
Yeah, I think a lot of teams are looking to get him up to that 185, 190 playing weight. And I think it's just going to take a team that's comfortable enough to do that because he is uber athletic and uber talented. I think he's going to be a really good player.
All right, I think I might need to tap you in on this name. Is it Ariante Ursary? I don't know.
You got it.
All right, close enough. All right, he's a D lineman out of Michigan or out of Minnesota, and you've got him going to Kansas City.
Yeah, this is another really polarizing guy that I've seen all the way at the end of the first round to early third round here. Kind of just fits the style here. Kansas City was kind of had a puzzling offseason. They let Joe Thuney walk to Chicago, and then they lost their tackle as well. So their entire blind side protecting the greatest quarterback of all time, arguably, is gone. So I don't see them going any other way other than protecting Mahomes in this round. And I guess they could be a player to move up and target a guy like Banks if he were to start falling in the first round here. But Ursary played Big Ten football. Really like the athleticism here. Moves really well for a big guy. Anchors well on the left side. So Ursary is a pick that I think just is a positional need of dire urgency for the Chiefs here.
And with the final pick, number 32, we've got the Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles going with Nick Scorton, an edge rusher from Texas A&M.
Yeah, definitely another upside over production guy here. But Philly has not been shy of doing that. Guys like Nolan Smith out of Georgia. They also had Hargraves walk in free agency. They had Sweat walk in free agency. So it's not going to be that unstoppable defensive front that they've had last year, especially here. So they're definitely going to be looking to add there at some point in the draft. This could also be a wide receiver sneaky play here. I think they maybe like Luther Burden a lot here. Ibuka, I think, there's kind of been on and off trade rumors for AJ Brown. So that could be a player here, but I like Scorton's ability to rush from the inside and outside. Another guy that's a really big edge. He stops the run really, really well. And I think he could just kind of be a chess piece out there in Philly to pair up with Davis and Huff and Co. and just be a really mobile piece along that defensive front here.
Well, that concludes round one, but we've got to get into some nitty-gritty stuff. Give us some of your favorite lines or props as far as positional. We had a bunch last year, and I know you threw out a couple on Twitter as well. Give me some of your favorites. What are our favorite bets here?
Yeah, so I think my favorite one here, I think he might be my favorite player in the draft. And I'll start by saying this. I think this is going to be a year where, as a fan of the NFL draft and watching your favorite teams, like day two, rounds 2 and 3 is where all the hay is going to be made. Like, it's kind of going to be a sleepy day 1, in my opinion, but this is a arguably historically good running back class. So that's going to be really fun to see where those guys land. And just a lot of day 2 guys that I like a lot. So first one leading into that, Travion Henderson, running back out of Ohio State. I know a lot of guys like Amari and Hampton as a sneaky pick in the first round, but I think Travion Henderson, I like him to be the second running back drafted at plus 265. Word on the street is that he had a private Zoom call with the Chiefs where Andy Reid was on last night, potentially being a pick at 31 for them. And you saw a couple years ago with Clyde Edwards-Helaire, they're not afraid to do it. So that wouldn't surprise me at all. And you talk to people about this guy, and one of the biggest knocks on rookies all the time is they can't pass protect coming out of college. And you watch the tape on this guy, he sticks his nose in, and he just stymies people. He ran really well at the combine. He catches really well out of the backfield. I love him as a prospect. I am pissed off that I have no picks in Dynasty this year because I think he's going to be a stud. Travion Henderson, he's my guy, and I think I like those odds for him to be the second running back drafted off the board. Moving on there, 2 other ones of position here. So it kind of depends on what platform you use here on DraftKings. Denver Broncos first position drafted. I had wide receiver at plus 380 here. I think it is a position. I think they could just be in the market for skill position this year, and I really like those odds there. I had Luther Burden mocked to them. Could see them going Ibuka. Could see them going Tet as well. Just kind of pick your flavor, pick your style of the day if you're Sean Payton. I like that one a lot. And then my last one here, Carolina Panthers, plus 100, so nothing crazy moving the needle there. But first position drafted being defensive line / edge. I like that one a lot as well.
Love it. I'll be tailing all 3. We already put those out on Twitter, so catch those if you can. I got one more. Who of this entire class, are there any future Hall of Famers that you see, especially in this first round, or who is going to have the best career in this first round? You can go either one.
That's a good one. I have to think about that one. Like I said, I'm in the minority on this one. I think Travis Hunter could be a damn good wide receiver in the league. I do. Like I know that contorting your body isn't a skill that's coveted by NFL, but like you watch him, and it's like the catch that OBJ made on Sunday Night Football last year. Like he does something similar to that, like once a night, like once every Saturday. I think he's a guy that if he bulks up a little bit, he could be a Hall of Fame wide receiver in a heartbeat. Like I said, I'm super high on Jalen Walker. If he goes to the right position, I think he's a chess piece that could be Micah Parsons-esque, where you never really know where he's going to line up from, what he's going to do. He can go sideline to sideline. I like that one a lot. And then I think you're looking at the edge rusher class. I think one of those guys, it's such an athletic class, but they're so inexperienced when it comes to playing college football and playing meaningful snaps. But I have a hard time believing that one of those guys is not going to emerge and be a stud as well. So those would be my three answers there. Hunter, the layup answer, Jalen Walker being kind of my sleeper answer, and then my safe answer just being one of the edge rushers I think is going to emerge as a stud.
You got anybody who people are really high on, and as far as NFL drafts, that you think is just going to be a bust, like someone that people just love and you just don't think he's going to pan out?
This is totally contradicting what I am all for here, but like I think the biggest boomer bust guy in this draft is Ted McMillan. I picked him to the Packers because I think he's a perfect fit in that system for what they need. But if he goes to the wrong situation, it could go south really, really fast, especially with some of the work ethic concerns. I think he's super boomer bust. And I got to bring up Shador as well. I don't know how it's going to translate. I think for me, he's very like my comp for him is kind of a Geno Smith, which is not going to kill you, but it's also not going to wow.
It's not going to take you anywhere. Yeah.
It's not going to get you a second contract. So I'm really interested to see how that show how he takes that show on the road. I think him going to a place like Pittsburgh would be really good to kind of stymie the external noise of what Dion might try to cause. It's a blue collar city that I don't think would tolerate the BS. So I think that'd be a really good fit for him. But those are two guys to watch because I can see them going either way, Tet and Shador.
This is a little bit of an off the wall question, and it's by no means like he's not an impact player whatsoever, but just with all the talk over the last 2 years, not so much this year because Alabama was so bad. Jalen Milroe thinks he's really good, and I feel like everybody thinks he's really bad, and the truth is somewhere in between that. Like, where do you see him going? Like third, fourth round, a little lower?
I definitely see third round being a player or a desperation second round pick if one of the the Clevelands, the New Yorks of the world feels really strongly about Dart and doesn't land it. He's you're exactly right. He's such an interesting prospect. I can't remember who I was looking at today. One of the analysts hit it right on the head. They're like, he is the best running quarterback I have ever evaluated. It's the power of Cam Newton with the speed of Lamar Jackson. Like it's very Justin Fieldsy, right? Like I think back to that one stretch 2 years ago at the end of Fields' tenure where they finally kind of unlocked what he could do, and he was going for 10 on the ground for 189 a game. It's kind of the same thing. Like if you can get him ease him into a system, kind of like Philly did with Hurts in his first year, where the ground is the primary attack, and you just kind of keep honing him as a passer. Like I do think he could be a successful pro, but I think fit is going to be absolutely everything for him.
Yeah, that O-line will need to be in place, and like you'll need a bit of patience too because the arm strength is certainly there. I mean, that guy might have like the best career Hail Mary percentage in college football, but I mean, he won't hit you on an open slant. So that would definitely be a project, but I was just curious because it seems like it's so people are in on him or they're like, oh, he shouldn't even be drafted. And like I said, the correct answer is definitely in between.
Yeah, I do think whoever does draft him is going to have one sick goal line package, one sick taste.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Well, that's all we got. Kyle, thanks for jumping on. We love this episode every single year. Be sure to tune into the Twitter. Kyle will be live tweeting probably some picks that he likes, or even just live tweeting some draft stuff. So we're gonna. It's tomorrow. This is gonna come out on the day of, so I guess it's today now. So super stoked for it. Kyle, thanks for jumping on. That's all we got for you guys, and we'll be back next week.